The Toronto real estate market in 2025 has been nothing short of interesting. And for this video, we're going to break down the 3 keys if you're a buyer looking to get into this market. And we're going to talk about how my buyers have been having success here as we've been navigating into the spring of 2025. And I'll give you 3 tips as we go along here and 2 bonuses at the end. So stay tuned for those bonuses because those are actually what I would argue are the kind of game breakers for that success for buyers here in 2025. And if you did get any value from this video and wanted to book in a call to discuss your plans for Toronto real estate in 2025, click on that first link down below or scan the QR code here on the screen. With all the news in the media this year and all the roller coasters down south, it's been so interesting navigating the market for buyers in 2025. And I'd argue that because we have so much inventory out there and all the media that's also loving all the headlines, it's definitely interesting out there. If you've watched any of my other videos that have discussed what's going on in the market, we talk about those numbers in depth. And when I'm meeting with buyers for the first time, this is something where we try to figure out what exactly they're looking for, where they're looking for it, what the timelines are. And that gives us a really good template to start the process into our buyer strategy session. Now, for this video, we're going to just break down 3 of those keys that we discussed in that strategy session. And as promised, don't forget those last 2 are super important. But if we talk about those 3 keys, the first one that I feel buyers really need to get in check and have figured out before we even get out there to go shopping are their finances. And the reason we say it's better to get that pre-approval in hand when you're going to shop for properties, the reason for that is it's kind of like going to the mall and knowing exactly what you can afford and what you're shopping for. So I would recommend reaching out to a mortgage broker or mortgage specialist to get a really clear insight into what exactly your budget looks for. Because typically once we get that budget, then we can adjust location, property type, and all those elements from there. The online calculators serve as a really good starting point, but they definitely do not factor in things like credit scores and employment and all those different things. So you can put in how much you make and it'll give you a number, but an actual mortgage specialist will be able to break down what exactly that looks like and what is the true number. So having that pre-approval in check is typically the best starting point. Now, going hand in hand with that pre-approval is what I like to call a buyer strategy session. Why do we sit down and have a coffee and go through that strategy session? Well, the main reason being is that there is so much going on in the Toronto real estate market, but not everything is performing the same. If you look at the media as a whole and they talk about Toronto, they're actually talking about the greater Toronto area. And I can assure you that a property that is 100 kilometers away from the city is performing differently than something located close to CN Tower. If we're looking at your specific scenario, what we want to break down is where exactly you're looking to purchase. And when we talk about where you're looking to purchase, we're taking a deep dive into the micro market. So we're very specific on what exactly that looks like. So we start wide, what's the full story, what's going on in the greater Toronto area. Then we narrow it down to the city of Toronto. Then we narrow it down one more time to the micro market and get as specific as we can to certain pockets. Did you know that if you're searching in certain parts of the city, being east or west of a main street could change the value of a property by multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars? The reason being could be school catchments, could be access to the highway, maybe one ways or different elements, but that's where we really try to get pretty specific on the location that we're looking at. So if we are talking about those key elements, figuring out which location would be ideal for you is definitely part of the equation. The next piece that you'll want to figure out on top of location and getting that micro market specific is the property type. And that's where having that budget typically dictates what that property type is. If you've watched any of my previous videos, we talk about that buyer triangle where it's usually location, price, and property. If you want the best location and the best property, you'll typically pay the highest price in a city like Toronto. If you want a cheap price, but the best location, you'll typically be buying one of the worst properties on the street. So those are the elements where typically buyers can choose 2 of the 3: location, price, and property. And when we figure all that out and we have that strategy session, we try to get a really clear picture of what exactly is happening. And the other piece of that is that some properties in the city of Toronto are still having tremendous competition when they come to market. So if you're looking at some of the best areas for a semi-detached property in the city, you're still going to be in multiple offers, even though the media says that the market's super slow. It's not like that across the board. And in fact, semi-detached properties have been going up in value month after month for the last few months. So it is something to definitely be specific about. If you're looking for a condo in some of those areas, yeah, it might be a little bit slower for you, but depending on which condo buildings and what condo type, because lofts right now are still super hot in the city of Toronto in those best locations. Let's recap those 2. Number 1, getting your pre-approval ready, your finances in check. And number 2, having that strategy session to really plan for what exactly you're looking for for and get a really clear picture on what's happening for that property type in a specific pocket. Number three for buyers is definitely to keep an open mind. As a listing agent, it's my job to make each and every property that I put on the market look at its absolute best. And not only to make it look great, but to be staged and show really well. And the pictures have to be amazing when you go online. And if you are a seller watching this, we will be doing a top 3 keys for sellers. And of course, that is one of them. But if you're a buyer, keeping an open mind, things that you can't change on a property are number one, location. Of course, it's pretty difficult to take a 100-year-old house and move it to a different area. And number two is the layout. Changing a layout is very difficult and very expensive in a property. So when you're considering things like the floor plan and the layout of the property, those are two elements, location and floor plan, that are really not that changeable unless you have the funds to make that kind of renovation. But some of the things that you can change relatively cheap and easily are paint, lighting, flooring, different elements like that will give a totally different visual look to a property. When it comes to kitchens and bathrooms, of course, costs start to add up. But if the floor plan works for you and location is your number one choice, maybe those are things you can do over time. But keeping that open mind and not just falling in love with all the pretty properties on the market may allow you to get some pretty good deals on properties in today's 2025 market. At the start of this video, I promised you 2 more things that buyers have been doing to have success in today's market. The first one is to drown out the noise. If you go on to any of the social media platforms, any of the news articles, it talks about how slow the Toronto real estate market is. But in fact, most buyers are looking for the same stuff. And yeah, there are some properties that are sitting on the market longer. But the way I can summarize the market right now in my easiest way possible is the best properties that look the best and are priced well are selling very, very quickly. Buyers are out there in the market and they know. And I'd argue that most buyers are looking for the same products. So if you're out there and you're looking at property, number one is drowning out the noise because the best stuff is still selling. And number two is being decisive. I found that my buyers that have gotten the best prices on properties that we've seen in multiple years have been very decisive on what they want. And when they find those properties, they don't take too much time to react on them. And the ones that do take more time sometimes lose those great properties because someone else is a little bit quicker to the table. Now, I'm not saying you have to rush and buy any property that you see, but if you've seen properties and you've been out there in the market, and that's something that we do with my buyers is we go and take steps. So we'll go and check out a few properties, see what checks the boxes, and then keep going to the next properties. And that'll give you a really good understanding of what exactly it is you're looking for. But once you find what you're looking for, if it checks most of the boxes, and just putting this out there, it's very rare that someone will be able to check 10 out of 10 boxes. Usually it's about 8, and that's a pretty good property. If it's 8, 9, or that unicorn 10 boxes checked out of 10, that is a pretty great property for you. And maybe being decisive to purchase that property might be your best bet in the long run. Because I've seen it some other times where buyers aren't that decisive and end up losing that one property that checks the most boxes. And then it may take quite a long time to find the next one, especially if you're looking for those hot properties in the city of Toronto. Hope that helped on the buyer side. And if you're a seller, video is also coming up, 3 keys for sellers. And if you are a buyer, that could also be a video for you to check out because then you'll see what sellers are doing to try and get the most amount of money for their properties. I'm Michael Ouzas. Thanks for watching.